Good evening here with the Urban Debate. With us here this weekend, I'm Sahar Jahan. We're going to be discussing a very pivotal issue here, one that concerns the children of the country. As far as their welfare, their well-being is concerned, specifically pertaining to survival, as far as addressing their needs of hunger. Now, India, that continues all along, we have continued to pride ourselves as a welfare state. And yet in the latest ranking, now this is an international ranking here, it's called the Global Hunger Index. It has been on for several years, and as far as the past 1 year's ranking is concerned, India's position has slipped. It has ranked a total of 116 countries, and India is literally at the bottom of the table at rank 101. We know why that has happened, the reasons that has been given out by the Global Hunger Index. But what has been interesting is the reaction that is coming from the government of India here. Now, this is coming from the concerned ministry, the Women and Child Development Ministry here, saying that the methodology that is being used by the GHI is non-scientific. It is not even devoid, it is in fact devoid of facts. The government here alleges that the study was done basis just 4 questions that were asked over a phone call or a phone call opinion poll. That's the allegation that has been brought forth by the government. But also, let's help you understand how the GHI goes about doing this year after year. There are 3 basic criteria to mark a country's global hunger index. The first being undernourishment. For undernourishment, the the Hunger Index takes in its data from the FAO UN report. For this year, it was taken in from the FAO UN report 2021. The second criteria is child wasting. For that as well, it takes in its data from the UNICEF report. The third criteria is U5MR, which is the under 5 mortality rate in children. That as well, it takes in from the UN IGME report. Now, the larger question that we're asking here tonight is, should the government outright just slam the findings of this report or take at least some aspect of that into account, because this is a grave situation that India is going through. India has a public distribution system. Have we done a cross-check on that, on what's happening? Where's the food going? Are the beneficiaries getting it? Midday meals in schools for children. Schools have practically remained shut the past year of the pandemic. They've lost out on those meals. They're not eating those meals. It would lead to undernourishment. Have we scrutinized that? We have a very robust welfare scheme here, which is called the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. It boasts of sending out 3.2 metric tons of food across the country to beneficiaries. Has it really reached those people? Should those be our larger concerns instead of outright slamming the findings of a report, which does have a certain credibility internationally, which has been doing this year after year? Let's in fact throw this open to our panelists with us. We have Dr. Gulrez Sheikh of the BJP. We have 2 experts with us, Dr. Jagdish Shettigar, who's the Professor of Economics from the Birla Institute of Management Technology, and Anjali Bhardwaj, Right to Food activist. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for being with us here. My first question here is for Dr. Gulrez Sheikh. Dr. Sheikh, help us understand why this nature of an outright slamming of the findings of this report.
Sahar, we should we also analyze the report, and there are many aspects of it which leads to the conclusion that the temperament of the report is not very scientific. And as you know, even the countries like Nepal or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka have been placed ahead of us. You may call that we would have loosened our position, our ranking during the COVID, but so were they. And their position is still even worse. And as far as the viewers are concerned, they should also understand that this doesn't mean that so many people are hungry or the way we used to see in our childhood, read in our childhood that so many people died with starvation in the state of Orissa or some other places. This report doesn't show the starvation level, but it does. It is a complex mix of n number of factors. But some things are there which are not scientific. The way they have gathered the data, we definitely put question mark on it. And the ranking of some countries like Nepal and Sri Lanka and Pakistan. So we don't accept this report. As far as a bigger picture is concerned, we are more concerned about the eating behavior of our people in India. And why I'm saying so, that there is something wrong in our eating behaviors. Let it be the middle class, office going middle class. Even in your studios, you will see that they are carrying a tiffin which has 3, 4 sections. Out of 4 sections, they will be carrying one full section of
No, but
rice,
Dr.
2
Sheikh,
full
this
sections
is
of chapati, and only
no,
one
but this
section
is
of
not a report
vegetable.
which is
So
analyzing the health condition of the middle class, which has access to food basis on their eating habits. No, this is with respect to
I'm
essentially analyzing the children and the access to food that children have. This is
I'm
not
coming to that.
about our eating
I'm
habits or analyzing why
yes,
you and I are malnourished. It's not about us and our
I'm coming
eating
to. I was
habits.
coming to
I
that
will
only.
come back to you in just a
No, no,
bit.
no.
Dr. Shettigar, what do you
I was
feel
coming
is
to it.
unscientific about this report? What are the takeaways from this report that we really need to be worried about? Why should we be alarmed, or why should we not be alarmed with this report instead of just blindly slamming it down?
If we just go by the index, which has been pointed out by the latest report, they have put India in certain serious condition. It is a 27.4 percent index, which is a serious nature of the problem. But problem is that when you talk about the hunger, we cannot take only the some of the criterion pointed out. For instance, this mortality rate or the what they call the child stunting and all those things, this cannot be the criteria. Calorie, I can agree. But even go by the calorie requirement, since the poverty ratio has been going down, and even by the World Bank report or the Asian Development Bank report, the poverty ratio has come down drastically. It is now, I think, 5.9%, about 70 million. And during the pandemic, I do agree that there has been some problem, especially because of the migration of the laborers to their back to their villages, whether it is in UP, Bihar, or the Northeast. And obviously, there would have been some problem. But in that context, the government has taken some measures. For instance, the free distribution of the food grains, which is still continuing actually, continuing. And apart from that, there has been substantial rise in the outlay on the employment guarantee scheme, which used to be around 40,000 crores per year. Now the government has raised by another 40,000 crores, apart from so many the welfare measures, but mainly this distribution of the food grains, which normally used to go wasted. You mean because whatever the government used to procure from the farmers, it used to be dumped, but that is over and about 20 million tons. It is only during the pandemic, this food grains was used for distribution to among the poor people, especially among these migrant laborers who have come back to the villages and others who have lost the job. Now, when we talk about that,
Absolutely.
I'm talking about the rise in
Right,
the
that's also part of the government
hunger
criticism
index.
that all of these welfare schemes and where 3.2 metric tons of food grains in terms of relief packages for the pandemic that has been distributed to the poor in the past 1 year, that's the government's argument here as well. Anjali Bharadwaj, would you like to step in here on this? If there is so much food that has been distributed in the past 1 year, where has it gone? Are children not getting to eat it? Why do we have this nature of a hunger index?
Sahar, we have a very, very big crisis on our hands as far as food insecurity is concerned in the country. We know that we've been going through the midst of a pandemic. In fact, we are in the midst of a pandemic. Economic recession is a reality for people in the unorganized sector, which is about 90% of our workforce, have not been able to get their jobs back, a large percentage of them. Coupled with that is the huge problem of price rise and inflation. We have a double-digit inflation for last 6 months now going. In this situation, people are finding it impossible to be able to feed themselves and their families a nutritious 2 square meals a day. There is a question that is being raised about the methodology of the Global Hunger Index. We can keep debating about it, but I think that what is a reality cannot be ignored. We know how people have been starving. People like Guddi Devi in Uttar Pradesh with her children, 5 children, was found starving on the brink of death. All of them found in UP. We ourselves, the Right to Food campaign, has done a survey, a hunger survey last year, in which we found that 64% people said they were consuming less lentils, 73% said they were consuming less green vegetables, and 1 in every 20 people that we spoke to said they went to bed without 2 square meals. So this is not about any methodology or any survey. This is the reality for people. What is the government doing? And let me now come to this point that so much has been done. Look, there is a National Food Security Act under which people are given ration cards. But it is a reality, and it has been taken up by the Supreme Court of India that there are crores of families in our country which don't have ration cards and are totally below the poverty line. And in fact, in June this year, more than 3 months ago, the Supreme Court said that there has to be ration provided to each of these families so they don't go hungry. Nothing has been done so far. The central government last year started the Atmanirbhar scheme.
All right.
They gave 5 kilograms of ration to people who didn't have ration cards. This year, they have done nothing. The Supreme Court asked the central government to increase the coverage of people under the National Food Security Act and give them ration cards. Nothing has happened in the last 3 months. How do we expect children not to be
All
hungry?
right, so that criteria of having a ration card, only then will you be able to benefit from these yojanas here. That's a huge question here. Dr. Sheikh, would you like to respond here to this, irrespective of what the government figures here say? I mean, we're taking into account what the government says, how much food has been released and sent to the beneficiaries. Are we keeping a check whether the beneficiaries are really getting access to that food or not? If you're not eating the food that is sent to you from a welfare state, what's the point in being a welfare state then? Are we keeping a check on that, on who's getting to eat that food?
Please, as far as government of India is concerned, we have made possible for 80 crore people to get free of cost wheat, rice, pulses, or chana. But we are to whom the government of India will give. Government of India provides the same to the state government, and state government job is to distribute it. In like in my state of Madhya Pradesh, the conditions are really good, and so many people have got. I have personally seen during the time of pandemic, the government was distributing, let it be from the level of Jila Panchayat or Nagar Nigams, the things were being distributed. In some states, the things may not be good, but in most of the states, the governments have done it. There are some questions, there are some examples like the lady who was starving with her 5 children.
Do we have a report on
you
this?
should not forget one thing.
If you're questioning the Global Hunger Index report, which has taken figures from the United Nations, you're calling it unscientific. Do we have our own report? Where are our own findings?
The Ministry of Food Resources, Khadya Apurti, definitely shows its report, and they also specifically shows which states have consumed their the amount of food and stuff which was rationed for them, and which have not, who are doing good and who are doing not. So definitely the Ministry of Khadya Apurti is making report, they are making data, and you can get it.
Dr. Jagdish, would you like to step in here on this? If you're not wanting to get in exactly to scrutinize on the findings of this report here, the report categorically says it takes in its figures from the findings of the United Nations, and these are each of the United Nations sub-offices which are based in each country. After that, the data is collated and put across. The GHI, in fact, also said that they wanted 135 countries on their list. But other countries did not fill the criteria, therefore they went ahead with a list of only 116 countries. So they did strike off countries off the list here if they did not get satisfactory data. And this is with the nature of the due diligence that this list has been released. But Dr. Jagdish, if the government wants to outright slam these findings, should we not be more concerned about finding our own reality? Where is our own reality listed by the government of India?
As far as the assessment of the situation is concerned, I'm sure that the policymakers take it seriously, whichever the government that may be. I'm sure that whether it is in the Niti Aayog or the people concerned in the government, whether it is present government or the whichever the government, no government can afford to be indifferent to the ground reality, because after all, they have to come back to the voters seeking their support. I don't think that anybody will be indifferent. But all that I'm saying is that there cannot be rise in the hunger index, though I do agree that, in fact, the report itself says that there cannot be zero. Though their scale is 0 to 100, there cannot be zero, neither 100. This report itself admits. And whereas in our case, it is 101. And that rank get distorted because of the change in the number of countries in between. So you cannot compare the situation of one country with another country, which is pointed out by the report itself. And that also report says that it is not a scientific method. Even other reports also, if you go through that, they will point out. And if the lady pointed out that about the inflation. The inflation is only for those who buy the product in the market. For them, they have to, the inflation is the binding. No doubt there was an inflation during recently. But here the food grains were distributed free of cost, and moreover, the method of distribution improved. Earlier, there was actually the flaw in the PDS system. Now the ration cards have been, the method has been made scientific, and it has been directly reaching to the people, whether it is a direct cash transfer or the food grain, whichever. They are trying
Anjali
to
Bhardwaj, would you like to respond here to this? As far as our PDS is concerned, which is the backbone, which is the spine of our welfare system, what is the status of the PDS here vis-a-vis that mandatory requirement of a ration card?
Yes, so let me just clarify two things very quickly. First of all, the free distribution of ration, which is being talked about, like I said, is only for people who have ration cards in the country. And under the National Food Security Act, the coverage of ration cards under the NFSA is such that up to 75% people in villages and only up to 50% people in urban areas have ration cards, the rest don't. So we have a situation where we are not saying it. The Supreme Court of India took suo motu cognizance of the problems and the hunger that migrant workers were facing. The court said that people don't have ration cards. Migrant workers don't have ration cards. They should be given rations. So there is no question of people being given free rations when they need it for all of these people who don't have ration cards. Unfortunately, the central government started a scheme called the Atmanirbhar scheme last year, which was only for 2 months. And they gave 5 kilograms of rations per person just for 2 months. They stopped the scheme. This year, they have not restarted it. Again, the Supreme Court said that increase the number of people you have given ration cards to. The central government has still not acted on it in 3 months. Okay. The central government is saying we'll wait for the census to come before we do that. Which
so there's an upper limit to the quota of ration cards that can be issued. That needs to be increased. Yes,
other thing I
Anjali,
want
that
to
needs to be
mention
increased
here
is what you're
is
saying.
The PMGKAY.
Okay.
That was only till November, till Diwali. That is going to stop now. It's going to stop the extra rations for the 80 crore people that they are talking about. So where are people going to eat from? We are looking at a situation
Okay,
where things
all
are
right.
only going to get worse.
All right,
Now,
valid concern.
it
Dr.
says
Sheikh,
for the
please help us understand
tampering,
what
it
the
is up to
government is doing
November. The
about this
government is
next,
yet to
because
take a
Dr.
decision
Sheikh,
on that.
it doesn't help to be in denial. Dr. Sheikh, it doesn't always help to be in denial in this nature of a blanket manner. There are other global indicators that have come in as well. We can run them down as much, but we have to keep looking within. There was the World Democracy Report earlier this year in which India's position slipped. There was the Global Press Freedom Report earlier this year in September, or before that, in which India's position slipped yet again. And all along, outright, we have seen an outright denial, a blanket denial by the government of India, instead of taking into account at least some aspects of these findings and to be worried. Why are we not worried today, Dr. Sheikh?
See, the government of India works scientifically with its own data, and what data shows that 50% of urban people and 75% of the rural people, if they are having the ration card, it's enough. And with the new census, we will decide on the other scientific lines as well. Let the census come once. As far as after Diwali, post Diwali, the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana will be over. Let's see. Government will it, and don't forget that since when the coronavirus was booming and the pandemic was raging everywhere, that time this yojana was brought in to support the poor people. But right now the GDP is growing more than with 20%. So people are back to job. They have started earning, and recent CPI index, what it shows that the food price, especially the vegetable price, is at all-time low. Compare it to Y basis, it is all-time low. So things are moving in right direction. And as far as the hunger is
No, but
concerned, we
Dr.
are
Sheikh, where
not.
is the vegetable price low? Distribution costs have increased because of fuel prices. Fuel prices at all-time high. Vegetable prices are impacted. And why are we talking about prices here? We are talking about free food distribution to the poor. These are two different things,
No, the
Dr. Sheikh.
lady in the panel. No, the lady in the panel was talking about inflation. So I have to mention that GDP is growing 20% above, and the CPI
Okay.
index is low with the food prices. As far as the free distribution is concerned, if the need arises, it will be continued. India is so short of grains. We are excess in grains rather. So we don't
All
mind
right. So you're
distributing if
saying
the people
you're
require.
saying the
Let's see.
Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana scheme that could be pushed ahead beyond November for another year. It could be continued here, but it is the criteria of a ration card, which was, as Anjali pointed out, that the Supreme Court highlighted here as well, which is the spine of our PDS, the public distribution system. The criteria that remains for a ration card, if the quota for the ration card, at least for the past 6 to 8 years, hasn't gone up, that needs to be dealt with as well. And we will only be able to deal with these problems if we look within and if we question our systems instead of slamming a global international index here by saying that there is a conspiracy or is it unscientific. It does us no good. It helps to ask these questions to us to find those solutions. Thanks for being with us tonight.